New report out today that suggests Vice President Dick Cheney played an even bigger role in the outing of CIA operative Valerie Plame than previously suggested. According to the moderate Voice, Cheney admitted to the CIA and the FBI that he was instrumental in revealing Plame's identity, but he says it was not on purpose. Michael Shear is a national political reporter for the Washington Post, and Bob Franken is a political analyst. Bob, we all knew from the CIA leak case that, in fact, Dick Cheney had instructed Scooter Libby to take a number of steps, that it was Dick Cheney who was driving the effort to get information about Valerie Plame and Joe Wilson. But it seems like Dick Cheney's sort of defense is, well, I didn't intend to have her leak, with intent being a crucial issue for prosecutors, right?
Absolutely. The law is very specific in saying that somebody who betrays the identity of the people who are covered must have intended to do so. It's really not a surprise that he's acknowledging this. I think that what we saw from the grand jury, the indictments and all this type of thing, plus the very involvement of Scooter Libby, suggests that, of course, Vice President Cheney had some role. So he's really just sort of putting a dot on the top of the I and crossing the T here.
Michael Shear, national political reporter of the Washington Post. What do you make of this?
Well, look, the Plame affair captured the attention of the country for a long time, largely because, as Bob says, the vice president was involved in some way. And so knowing slightly more details about what his involvement was is interesting, though. Keep in mind, Patrick Fitzgerald, the special prosecutor in that case, has moved on. He's obviously prosecuting now the Blagojevich case. So I suspect that we're not going to be hearing a lot more about the Plame case even after the vice president leaves office.
I agree, but the irony is he's moving on because he couldn't move the case any further, not because maybe he didn't have suspicions, but because Scooter Libby obstructed the investigation, and then when they were trying to put the pressure on Scooter Libby after he was convicted, there was the commutation of his sentence, and so no incentive for Scooter Libby to essentially remember conversations that he conveniently seemed to forget at the grand jury. But in any case, it is interesting when we look, Bob, that Vice President Dick Cheney's been making rounds and exit interviews talking about the Bush legacy. I want to read you a quote from an editorial from the Mercury News talking about Cheney's tenure as vice president. Quote, "He's actually proud of his role in the misguided invasion of Iraq, the use of waterboarding at Guantanamo, and warrantless spying on U.S. citizens. As to leaving the economy in ruins, we're pretty sure he had a hand in that, too." Bob, how will history remember Dick Cheney?
Well, he will probably not be remembered as Mr. Congeniality. This is somebody, to put it mildly, this is somebody who seemed to follow the spirit of that greeting that he once had for Senator Leahy. I'll leave that one to your imagination. And some people might say that it raises the question about whether we should have in such a high office somebody who doesn't have any further political ambitions. Because one is left with the impression that when it came to public acceptance and when it came to some of the niceties of democracy, I'm being sarcastic about niceties, and constitutionality, to put it bluntly, he didn't give a damn.
And Michael, it was prosecutor Patrick Fitzgerald who said that Vice President Cheney had put a cloud over the White House. As we learn more information about the vice president, when people start talking or historians are able to dig into some of the records, will that cloud only get darker?
Well, it's hard to imagine. I mean, you know, at one point, popularity polls showed that Dick Cheney's popularity was at historic lows. I think at one point it was 16 or 17% approval rating. So it's hard to imagine that over time some of this won't get a little bit better. That's usually what happens. Even President Nixon obviously got some increased favor over time. So I think it'll improve. But as Bob says, there's an awful lot of things that Vice President Cheney did throughout the 8 years that seemed to kind of shrug at whether or not people liked him, and that will probably continue even after he's out of office.
Michael Shear, national political reporter for the Washington Post. Bob Franken, political analyst, good friend of all of us. Thank you both very much. We appreciate it.